So at this point, the primary control scan that we imported and we tied in has served its purpose. We're ready to delete all of the primary control scans and data and information and just clean our current scan for final export and archiving. So what we have to do, so I previously mentioned we have to more or less create a mirror copy of this UCS. The reason being is you cannot delete all of these primary control scans. You cannot delete these if that UCS is still active. I'm not only active, but just simply available, because this UCS is tied to the primary control setups, or at least one of them. So you won't be able to delete the setups if you don't have this UCS deleted. So the simplest way that I found, and also the most accurate, is quite a simple process. So what we have to do is we're going to more or less fake the control by using the existing control of that primary control data set. So to do so, what we're going to do is we're going to go and create minimum of three virtual targets in the current deck scan setups. So just make sure when you do this, you're always grabbing or using setups that you want to keep for the final export. So in my case, I'll pick one here, probably one on this corner, and then one down here on this end. So I got a nice triangle, 3 points separated far out, so shouldn't have any potential of the point cloud trying to shift or rotate. Essentially, just do not pick lines or points that are in a straight line. That's what matters. So now we're going to go into just one of these single setups, and we're just going to go and apply and create virtual targets. So which point, you can have your point cloud turned off or on, doesn't matter, but just go in here, go to your edit targets, new virtual target, and just simply click somewhere in the data set that you're gonna keep. So also just gonna label this 1, which will be used to create the control text file. So I'm happy there, and you're just gonna kind of rinse and repeat this process. New target. Doesn't matter where you click, could be in the ground, could be on a cage, top of form, does not matter, so long as the points and this control is going to stay within the final point cloud. So I forgot to label it, select it, go to, and last point. So now we're going to go back to our sitemap. So just make sure you have the current UCS active. That'll ensure that you're able to pull your real world coordinates, northern eastern elevation. So now I'm going to turn off all my setups, turn off my point cloud, and then sometimes I might have to turn off the geotags, but in this case, don't have to. So now I'm just going to create a simple text file with these XYZ coordinates, and then we're going to use that text file as a applied control file or system for this data set. So do that real quick. Pull up in your notepad, go 1, and it's northern eastern elevation, so YXZ 447863.909. And then we'll save this. Just going to save mine to my desktop, but I typically save this in the same folder as all the raw scans, or just outside that folder, so that it always stays with the raw scan data for archive and export. Let's call this control. So now, go to our import tab, go and find my folder, find my file, import. So nothing was changed, nothing was done. So here's the control points that I just created. That's what they look like. So now we'll just turn everything back on. And so because I labeled them and I gave them the same control point ID number 1, 2, and 3, when I go and apply control, it will automatically find them, apply control. So now I've got control. So it looks like I might have had a typo because I've got some error. So let me double check that. All right, went through, found my error, just simply had a little typo. So you should see after you've applied the control and sort of faked the control, if you will, your errors should be 0. Well, in my case, because I only went to 3 decimal places, it's rounding to that 3rd, 4th decimal place. So up until that point, though, I have 0 error. So now what I can go and do is I can come into my sitemap, I can disable this, I can then delete this UCS, and now I can come in and I can delete all of my control scans. Oops. So now, right click, delete links for selected setups. And then I'm going to go scroll down and get the rest of my primary control scans. Hold shift, right click, delete links for setups. And so now, come down here, select all the setups that do not have any links, and delete. Yes. So now, in a matter of a second, I just deleted like a billion points. So much faster. And so now I'll probably have to come in here and reapply my control. So yep, same thing. You can go and name them. Verify the control. Yep, still got 0 error. Nothing changed. So now I've got my deck scan that is now has the coordinates applied for my primary control scan. And now I'm ready to go and clean some of this data to however much you need to for the final export and kind of archive or sharing. So much faster this way, so you don't have all of the P50 data to go and delete as well, but you still retain the exact coordinate system from the control scan. So you get all of that accuracy to basically use in an export. So now basically that's kind of the next step. You can go about this through kind of a basic UCS or even an advanced UCS, and you can still get the job done. But if you've seen those other training videos, especially with the basic UCS and creating that system, there's a potential that you could induce some error, because in going that route, it's going to rely on just that single setups kind of level or IMU data to determine level for the data set as a whole. So because of that, it could introduce some error. So this method of kind of creating your own control points, control file, importing it and applying it, this is guaranteed it'll stay the exact same, and you can verify and prove that just by seeing this error to make sure, like I had a typo, I can make sure that I have it correct and exactly where it needs to be. Say we needed to adjust the Z elevation. So if I come in here to this setup, should have a benchmark right off of this corner. So I can come in here, and it's in architectural units, but I can come in here and I could basically go and verify this 4478.254. I could verify that against what this translates to from architectural to civil or real world coordinates or elevation. If I did need to do a Z adjust, because in our case the building's going to shrink a little bit or it's going to settle, we have seen that over the life of our project as we've gone 300 plus foot in the sky. So if you have a known benchmark, you can then come into that control file, right, after you verify where this should be at, right, say you needed to go up a 1/4 inch, I could come in here and I could bump each one of these elevations up a 1/4 inch, re-import it, reapply the control. Now I got my whole data set that's just been transformed to match exactly the benchmarks and the elevation of where it should be in the field. Because we are doing, hopefully, some of kind of the QC process and checking some of these coordinates on the deck or some kind of layout, as long as you're checking and doing a few spot checks and make sure it's kind of falling within your acceptable tolerances, you can know your X and Y or the horizontal location of your scan is good, right? There's always going to be some error, whether it's from the field engineers, from your trade, your surveyors, or even your own scan and your own registration. There's always going to be some error, so it's always trying to find and understand your limits or what's acceptable, and if it's outside of that, kind of the best way to go about fixing and transforming and shifting. So say this data set for some reason needed to do a simple transform to the east, like after you check a couple points and both of them like, yep, you need to go east a 1/2 inch. Same thing, you can come in here and you can adjust your X values and bump it to the east an eighth of an inch or quarter inch or whatever you need to. If you need to do some very minor transforms like that, it's very simple to do just by adjusting this control scan or the control text file. So those are a couple options from primary control scan import, tying in, and then kind of deleting points, deleting setups, and QC. So at this point, you're ready to go and finalize, or say you clean your data and you're ready to finalize. Because you have this applied control imported in, down the road, I always archive my projects, so if I need to bring them back in or add scans to it, I still have the same control file already applied, or these control points. So I've got coordinates, so I don't have to go through this process again. So that's why it's helpful, and it just keeps down on file size as well by deleting those control scans. This kind of process of deleting them just saves on file space for when you archive, speeds it up from re-importing to going back through and editing, cleaning data, whatever. If you can get rid of the control scans, it's just going to help speed up and just make life easier down the road. So that's why I recommend trying to delete them. You absolutely can leave them in here, clean the data with them with the point control scans left. It's just going to take longer. And then even during the finalize the export tab, you can still select just these deck scans and just export those, and not use or export anything from the control scans. You always have that option, but once again, I found this to be the simplest, fastest, and just most reliable and accurate method of kind of transferring the coordinate system over to delete the primary control scans out. So in my case, right, we did this with the P50 scanner, and that's what our control scan is, but I've created multiple kind of secondary control scans inside the building from control points on the ground. I kind of create that baseline scan with the coordinate system applied and attached. So at which point, once I have that, I can archive it, whether it's an E57 or I can keep the project live within Register 360. I can then always go back and scan more times in the future, bring them back in, or just do the same process of merging that kind of secondary control scan from whatever area, from whatever location. I can merge it back in, and as long as you got good overlap and good setups to tie into, you've got control established. So you can become very self-reliant and self-sufficient, not always having to rely on a field engineer or outside third-party surveyor to give you control for the project, for the data set. So just some cool workflows that we've been implementing that have had a tremendous success on our project, and we will continue to use on all the future ones as well.